The types and formats for each piece of content can be very diverse and very different. For indie films, what I find has been working overall are three types of content. You have the educational content, you have behind the scene content, and you have the entertaining content. Typically, film directors and producers are focusing first and foremost on the entertaining content. We're talking here things like clips from the movie or the trailer or the movie itself. Sometimes you have behind the scenes, depending on the production. The quality is sometimes not that good. Educational content is something that's not talking about your movie. It's something that's talking about the industry or giving technical information on how certain things are done. It's talking about script writing. It's talking about the genre in general. When people are in the awareness phase, they are not necessarily looking for your movie. What they are interested in could be horror film in general, or it could be drama film or comedy. So what you're doing is creating content about this genre. So in the case of wildlife documentary films, you can start talking about some technical aspects of wildlife documentary filmmaking. How long the filmmaker has to wait, how big the team is, how long it takes to find that certain animal, how they can film at night, etc. So this is educational content that is not talking about your movie, but it's talking about the industry, about the genre. So people who are interested in wildlife documentary films will start looking up these kind of topics or will be interested in following you on social media because they are interested in learning more about that. What you are doing here is genuinely giving them value. They have a bunch of questions and you are giving them an answer. One example of that is Headspace, which is a meditation app on your phone. It started as a meditation app and now they have a series of shows on Netflix. So this is part of their marketing initiatives where they are creating content for people who are on Netflix that want to learn about meditation. The show is not focusing on the app. The show is not telling you how amazing Headspace is. The show is just teaching people how to meditate or talking about the benefits of meditation. So other examples of educational content would be guides and playbooks. There would be workshops. These could be also expert roundups. So when you get a bunch of experts together, you write an article about it or you have a talk with them about a certain topic. So this might seem strange for indie films to focus on. But when you're looking to attract a certain type of viewers, people who are hardcore into fantasy, for example, guides and playbooks and workshops are definitely something up their alley. We just don't think about doing these kind of things because we think like, oh, this has nothing to do with my movie. But when you start building a community about your movie based on the interests of these people, you're actually attracting the people who are going to be the biggest fans of your movie. Typically, that kind of content is for the awareness phase because people are interested in the topic and the genre, not interested in your movie. But then you can interest them to move to that consideration phase by creating content similar to behind the scenes content. So you have how-to videos. So let's go back to the example of the nature documentary. At some point, you would have talked about how filmmakers film at night. In the how-to video from behind the scenes, you are specifically talking about how you did it. You give real-life examples of how you as a filmmaker filmed those animals at night, what it looked like. You have also talks, you have webinars, you have exclusive groups. So we don't always think about that as behind the scenes, but when you have talks with the scriptwriter, with the director, that's part of it. When you have webinars where people can have a Q&A with you or with the scriptwriter or the editor, that's part of it. Where you have exclusive groups on Discord or on Facebook, that's also part of those behind the scenes. So we're using the word behind the scene in a broader sense, where it's educational content that is specific to your movie. And then the third piece would be entertaining content. So this is what most of the effort is usually spent on because we're talking about films. A film by itself is an entertaining piece of content. Even documentary films are entertaining in some way. So you have to make this type of content entertaining first, regardless of the type or genre of the movie. So some examples would be trailers, clips from the movie, but also things like reviews. You can focus on the story development and it doesn't have to be always video content. It can be written content. If you have something like a fantasy film, you can focus on the lore. You can include bonus material such as scenes that didn't make the cut, etc. So that kind of content is the meat of it all. This is the place where you're convincing the person that they made the right choice. This is that extra thing that's going to make them decide to watch your movie, decide to follow you, etc. This is the stuff also that you're going to use for the nurturing campaigns. If you are able to attract them to follow you and build a community, that's the type of content they're looking for. The content formats can be very different. As indie filmmakers, we often just think about video content, video all the time. But this is not the only place where you can find your audience. So obviously you know a lot about video format, but there's also audio format, so you can create things like podcasts or talks. There are written articles where you can talk about the technical aspects of what you created. You can have interviews with people on your team. You can obviously have reviews, but you can also think about it as illustrations, for example, infographics, or even cartoons. It is very important to keep a few things in mind though. You always have to be honest in your content. Don't try to fake something or sell them on something that doesn't exist. Don't talk about the amazing VFX if you actually know that your VFX are not that good. Don't talk about the mind-blowing music if you don't even have a composer yet. Keep in mind that you are competing with other movies, but also you have indirect competition. You are competing with a night out with friends. You are competing with a good dinner at home. You are competing with board games. Keep in mind that your competition is not only other films. And all those pieces of content have one purpose. It's to build an emotional connection between you and your viewers. They need to actually like you so much that they're going to decide to throw their money at you. You are working on the emotions, and that's what's going to make them decide to support you. And if you do it very well, they will also be willing to follow you beyond this one film that they just watched. Keep in mind that not every piece of content has an immediate result. Some pieces of content might require up to 2 years before they return some results. For example, the podcasts. You might release 1 or 2 episodes and say, oh, this is so bad, I have nobody listening. You have to give it some time, and you have to do it regularly. And even if you don't do it well at first, that's okay. But do it regularly and give it some time, because some pieces of content will take up to 2 years to return results. And if you don't feel that your movie is worth investing so much marketing effort into it, that's totally fine. There are other ways you can do it in a very fast way. But when you create something like a podcast, for example, you're working beyond that one film. You're working on a full community, you're working on a full genre. You're actually developing a community of fans who will be following you beyond this one movie, but will also want to watch the second and the third and the fourth film you have, especially if they are more or less in the same playing field.